So do you know what's better than one of the best-selling games of all time? That same game having an expansion coming out 10 years after release. Hello, my gaming friends, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am Jonathan, your host here at QuickBird Gaming, and I appreciate you tuning in for this episode of QuickBird News, where we talk about all the gaming news of the week that's fit to cover. And as usual, it has been a full gaming week. There's so much going on right now. This video is going to cover all the news from May 24th to May 30th, and I've got a few things to talk about. We got Sony acting the fool again, because this just doesn't seem to, it doesn't seem to be different week to week. I've got some game sales figures to talk about, a game delay, a little tidbit from Valve, and a few other things here and there. As always, each story is time-stamped in the description box down below, so feel free to scroll down, look for a story that interests you, and jump ahead to it. Now, before we get to that, though, we got to talk about our cover story, and that is The Witcher 3 DLC being confirmed, because if you can't tell already, I am stoked for this. Okay, I'm going to start with this Games Radar article that was published on Friday, the 29th of May, and it says The Witcher 3 Songs of the Past is similar in scope to Blood and Wine and will be a trip down memory lane before Ciri takes over in Witcher 4. They said that, being developed in tandem with the Witcher remake studio Fool's Theory, Songs of the Past is due to release on consoles and PC sometime in 2027. Beyond those details, we don't know a whole lot about the expansion, but CDPR has said it's a major piece of content providing hours of gameplay, including new story characters, which is why the studio doesn't want you to use the reductive term of the DLC, and they're calling it an expansion. One last outing for Geralt as the main protagonist before he hands the reins over to Ciri. Now, to me, this is amazing. It's fantastic. Witcher 3 originally released in 2015, and since then it has become one of the best-selling video games of all time. I think last time I looked, it was something like 7th or 8th on the list, only being outshone by games like Tetris, Minecraft, GTA 5, Red Dead Redemption, PUBG, and some other really heavy hitters. It's probably the highest pure RPG on the list. I mean, some people are going to argue about RDR and GTA, but that's fine. It is been an amazingly successful game. And so for them to go back to this, to kind of bridge the gap over to Witcher 4 is really, really remarkable. Like I said, unfortunately, we're not getting a lot of information about this. I know that they mentioned this, the rumor for this has been circulating for a long time. In fact, I covered it back in QuickBird News episode 59 in January, where I thought it was a possibility. The rumors were circulating then, and now it's actually been confirmed. So this is amazing. This is fantastic. And I pretty much guarantee that when we get an update on when this is coming, I'm going to do a full Witcher series playthrough of 1, 2, and 3 and try and coincide, getting to this in Witcher 3 about the time this drops. So I'm really excited. This is really awesome, and I'm looking forward to it. Something to be aware of, according to this Insider Gaming article, and this comes from, Wednesday, May 27th, is that they're updating some PC system requirements. Now I'll scroll down here and just pull these up on screen. In general, the CPU, GPU, your video RAM, and your RAM don't look that outrageous. The important thing here to note is that it's going to require a solid-state drive. It's not going to work on a hard disk drive anymore, and it's not going to work on Windows 10 anymore. So those are things that, for the most part, you should be aware of. Otherwise, a lot of these requirements are it's going to run, if they're being precise, if they're accurate on their system requirements, it should run just fine on older systems, just like Witcher 3 did. So just something to be aware of. But I'm hoping we're going to see some more information about this. As of the posting of this video on Sunday, the 31st of May, Summer Games Fest Showcase is this Friday. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to live stream it and cover it. And hopefully we're going to get some information there. If not, we may not know anything further for a while. So let's keep our fingers crossed. And like I said, for all you would-be Witchers out there, great news. By now, I'm sure you have heard that if you're at all paying attention to what's going on with Sony, that they have announced that they are discontinuing support for their long-running multiplayer shooter, Destiny 2. They have announced that they are going to put up their last update to the game on June 9th. So that is, as of the posting of this video, a little over a week away. And they are going to put their effort into backing Marathon.
What the fuck y'all
Why? Nobody has any idea. And it's to the point where I'm going to show you this article from PC Gamer, and this is from Wednesday, the 27th. Marathon Season 2 is kicking off with a free week so new players can try Bungie's extraction shooter out on a clean slate. So in other words, they're going to offer up a free week to see if they can draw people in. Now that free week is going to kick off on June 2nd, which is, as of the posting of this video, is 2 days away. So if you're watching this on Sunday when I post it, it's Tuesday. They're going to start, they're going to have an open play week, they call it. And they said during the open play week, the full game will be available to play on Steam and on consoles, and any progress you make will carry over to Season 2. A great time to invite your friends, as everybody's inviting with a clean slate. Because, yeah, they're wiping everybody's progress at this point. So, I think a lot of people are calling this a desperation move, a Hail Mary, and I think that's correct. I don't think you offer a free week to drum up interest in a game that's less than 3 months old. If things are going great, I don't think you do this. And you can tell things aren't going great. Now, I know a lot of people are going to crucify me for using Steam database numbers. However, when you look at this over on Steam database for Marathon, and you see that it's hitting, 11,000 players. And if we go back a month, 11, 13, 10, 11, it's pretty much has been flat for the last 3 weeks. The game is hitting a consistent peak, of 10 to 12,000 players. It hasn't dropped. It's still getting, that's concurrent players. So you may have 75 to 100,000 players logging in a given day. If you're to believe Paul Tassi, I think from over at Forbes, who's the one who said that his insider sources told him that about 70% of Marathon players are playing on PC, so mostly on Steam. So this is a pretty good reflection. Now, the thing is that Destiny 2 players, the majority of them are not playing on Steam. I've seen the reports that say it's about over 50% on console. Having said that, look over at Destiny 2, and this is what's going on right now on Saturday night. This is at the same time as those Marathon numbers, over twice as many players. And you've seen they've had an uptick just this weekend, 25, 24. I mean, they were at 10, 11,000, and as the news hit, they've been climbing. More and more people have been coming back to the game. Sony, you backed the wrong fucking horse. There's just no denying it here. And I think it's getting more and more apparent all the time. I go to this Insider Gaming article from Thursday the 27th. Destiny 2 players aiming to slam servers with a big party on June 9th. So right at the time the free week for Marathon ends, Bungie is also dropping their Destiny 2 final update. And just if you go through it, you can find it online, or maybe I'll put a link in the description if I can find one, of all the stuff in the patch notes for what's coming out in this update. It's a lot of features players have been demanding for years, which also kind of tells me that Sony and Bungie could have done these things at any time and just chose not to. Again, who the hell knows? I don't know if they have monkeys randomly pushing buttons to make decisions in the Sony and Bungie upper echelons. It feels like it. So they're going to try and do this big server slam when this update drops. As what they call overload the servers as an act of defiance. It's going to be remarkable. And I don't know how many people they will get to log in. We only have the Steam database numbers, but if those numbers creep up towards 100,000 when it happens, you're probably talking about twice as many, 2.5 times as many players trying to play at the same time. That ought to tell Sony something. This also ought to tell Sony something. This is a petition, a change.org petition. As of here on Saturday night, it's got almost a little over almost 314,000 signatures demanding that they make Destiny 3 instead of sink money into Marathon. All of you people that have signed this, I salute your valor. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to make much difference. Sony has made these decisions probably, a long time ago. These big companies don't pivot on a dime for the most part. They're very, it's like the difference between a speedboat and a cruise liner. Once they start to make the turn, they commit to it. They have to, because it takes a long time to make that turn. for the apparatus for a big machine to work like this. They made these decisions some time ago, and I think they're going to stick to it. I have had people in the last couple of news videos where I've talked about Sony and Bungie mildly accuse me of being a doom poster. I really don't want to be. I want people to have games they're enjoying, and I'm glad people have enjoyed Marathon. But there just aren't enough of you to sustain it, unfortunately. If this was a single-player game, we wouldn't even be talking about this. And I think that they had this huge impairment recently where they wrote down Bungie's value. Bungie has already laid off people in 23 and 24. Sony has hinted that further impairments could come. I don't want to say this is the end, but this might be the end for Bungie. I don't know if we will see this company will exist in the same state a year from now, if it will be massively reduced or if it will have just been effectively swallowed and dispersed by Sony to other efforts. I think these are just bad decisions they've made. And because that big ponderous cruise liner is not going to turn very fast, they're not going to be able to unmake them. Even if they started working on Destiny 3 today, it would be years before it was out. And I just don't think they can hold on that long. It's sad because of the name Bungie has, and I'm repeating shit I said in previous videos, so I'm not going to belabor it. But, here we are. Another week, and Sony and Bungie just find new and better ways to keep digging a hole. Okay, I said I wanted to touch on some sales numbers, and I'm going to start with the game that was released this week, and this GameSpot article from Thursday, the 28th of May. 007 First Light put up massive launch day sales numbers. 007 was already shaping up to be a big game, and it says, as shared by IO Interactive, who developed and published the game, First Light managed to sell 1.5 million units in its first 24 hours, and then that's shown by the tweet they put out. Now, remember, the way we discuss these things, that wasn't players, that wasn't engagements, that was sold. That's copies sold. At $70 or $80, that's probably to the tune over a little over 100 million after they paid their storefront cost to Steam and PlayStation and so forth. They probably walked away with 75, 80 million, kind of right out of the gate. Now, I think that players have really been receiving this game well. I don't know if they were just hungry for a James Bond game or, this kind of Uncharted / Hitman style game. But the ratings speak for themselves. I think on Steam, it had a 92% positive review score. On PlayStation Store, about a 4.8. Same on Xbox, and over on Metacritic, it had an 8.8 from the users. I really don't give a fuck what the critics think. They're kind of irrelevant. I like to know what other players are thinking. So across the board, this game has really received good reviews from players, just in general. I will hesitate to call it an unqualified success at this point because we really don't know how much money was put into making this game. I've seen numbers thrown around that say it took 7 years and over $200 million. I have no idea about the veracity of these. And often we don't know how true these numbers are because the developers don't necessarily share them. We find out when they start having to lay people off that things are not going successful when they do their quarterly earnings calls and they are not well. So I don't know if this game will ultimately be a success for IO Interactive. That's still TBD. I think they're off to a great start. What I do like is the fact that a lot of players have bought this game, they're enjoying it, and there's something they can sink their teeth into and really, it's another game. So far, this has been a pretty good year for games. I'm going to do this because I don't want to curse us. But, we're coming to the end of the first half of this game, and we've seen some really, even from the AAA space, we've seen some great games. We've seen, Resident Evil 9. We have seen Crimson Desert. And then, in the double A or indie space, we're seeing games like Windrose. We're seeing games like Slay the Spire 2 and Subnautica 2, whether you put that as a double or AAA type of studio. I guess AAA since they're owned by Krafton now. But anyway, we're seeing a lot of these games that a lot of players are really enjoying this year. 007 is just keeping that going. Because remember, that's who I care about, the players. I want players to have good games they can enjoy. And so far, it seems like this is just adding to the roster this year. And since we're on the subject of sales, I just wanted to touch on this real briefly, this article from PC Gamer from Thursday, May 28th. Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era teases a roguelike mode as it hits 1 million sales. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Heroes of Might and Magic franchise, it was very big. Heroes of Might and Magic 2 and 3 back in the late 90s were quite big. In fact, I remember Heroes 3, which is widely considered to be kind of the pinnacle of the series, had sold several million copies at that time, which, given the fact that this was almost 30 years ago, is even more impressive than it is now with the, the much greater base of video game players there are now. And then it kind of, the series kind of, started to change formats and started to tinker with things. And it kind of tailed off. Ubisoft bought it, and I think it died. I don't think a game came out after 2006. But this, let's see, the name of the company that's reviving it now, Unfrozen, and their publisher, Hooded Horse, have brought this back. And they've kind of gone back to what it was like in Heroes 2 and 3 versus the later iterations of it. And it has really appealed to the nostalgia factor. This game went to early access on April 30th, so less than a month later, it hit 1 million sales. I'm keeping an eye on this. I want to say it was $30, maybe 40. It was one or the other. So it wasn't even a full price game, but it's something interesting. It is still in early access, so they're working on it. They have developed a full roadmap of things they want to do, including, like I said, teasing a roguelike mode in the game. I don't know how that's going to work in a turn-based strategy type game, and they haven't released a lot of details. But if you if you remember these games, this is something you might want to keep an eye on, because, like I said, it's over 1 million sales. It's got some pretty good ratings, and it's nostalgia bait, man. But it seems to be working. Well, since we're talking about hitting bottom and finding new ways to dig, I can't just give it to PlayStation. I got to hit up Xbox too, and they need some flack for this. This is from Friday, May 29th. Fable has been delayed to 2027. It will now launch in February of that year. In a social post from the official Xbox account, the company said it had made the decision so Fable can, quote, have the dedicated moment it deserves, unquote, which is likely a reference to GTA 6's launch later this year. And then the rest of this article talks about all the games on Game Pass and Xbox, and kind of a fluff piece. So this is interesting. I've seen this article or this story popping up on other websites, and all the games journalists are kind of nodding together like trained seals that yes, it's going to be because GTA 6 is launching later this year, and they don't want to be up against that. I'm not so sure that that's the case. I think that, there are other games like Blood of Dawnwalker and Phantom Blade Zero and Wolverine that are all launching in September. If Fable were ready, they could have launched it ahead of GTA 6, and that wouldn't have been as much of an issue. I've also seen people arguing that they are doing this because they being Playground Games and Microsoft, got such negative feedback and such blowback from the early trailers and the appearance of the proposed main character and so on, that they went back to retool it. And some people have even gone so far as to say they're taking out all the woke elements out of this. And I don't think that's the case, mostly for two reasons. First of all, even though I'm not somebody who beats the drum for progressivism in games, I largely think it's kind of pointless to do it. I don't really care, because I think that in all cases, gameplay is king. It does not really matter. If you have an excellent game, it doesn't matter how quote-unquote woke you make it. People are going to play it because the gameplay is excellent. I think that even though it turns off a certain segment of the population and the game player base, the player base, some people may not buy it. Those things can only kill an otherwise already weakened game that's not that great. I think it can be a coffin nail. You think about a game like Baldur's Gate 3, which had all kinds of representation, and it didn't affect it at all because it was a great game. It's just not going to make a difference. So I don't think that's their focus here. And second of all, this is kind of the more important thing. It's bold of somebody to assume that this is the lesson that Playground Games and or Microsoft are going to learn, that that they need to do this. Considering Playground just released Forza 6 Horizons, which, instead of, say, just for an example, featuring a standard gender idea of binary, it features body types and pronouns. Now, them being a AAA AAA company, AAA developer, Do you think that that's the lesson they're going to take away from this? That they're going to take away from that we got all this negative feedback, so we need to remove this material? Or do you think they're going to look at Forza 6, which I think the analysts said have sold about close to 5 million copies already, and say, oh, we put these in, it didn't affect the gameplay at all. We can put them in everything. I know it's not that simple when you talk about a game's sales, but do you honestly think that's what's going to be their takeaway from this? We got negative feedback, so let's take these elements out, even though it worked on another game? Hell no, they're going to say it worked on another game. Let's just put them in here too. So I don't think that's the case. And I actually am not sure it's the GTA 6 launch, because I really think about the old saying that goes something along the lines of never attribute to malice what can be explained by stupidity or incompetence. Meaning that, there doesn't have to be a direct, purposeful idea to them making this delay, when you can just explain it by the fact that they haven't finished the damn game. They can't get it to work, and they're trying to get it to work. I think that's probably the most likely answer, because we see this in the AAA industry all the time. They delay it, and then they shove it out the door because they never could get it to work. And maybe what's getting ready to happen to Fable. And the game like this, they've had such hype build up for it, and I think over time, when you hit a certain critical threshold, hype for a game starts to curdle. It starts to kind of become a negative. It sours anticipation. People are going, "What's the delay? Why is there a problem? This game has got problems. It's not going to work." And I think Fable has already hit that tipping point now, because there's a lot of negative buzz about it. And the longer this goes on, the more delays there are, the less confidence people are going to have in it. And I personally I think they're having problems getting it right. Playground is, they're a racing developer. This is their first attempt at an open world RPG type, and they may be having trouble with it. And based on the, footage I've seen, I think that's probably the case. So getting away from GTA may be coincidental. I don't think they're looking to strip all the progressive elements out of it. That just doesn't make sense to me. I could be completely wrong. Time will tell. But as it stands, one of Microsoft's flagship franchises, if you want to be able to call it that under Xbox, is delayed yet again. And since we're on the subject of Microsoft, let's just keep it rolling for one more article. This Game's Radar article from Thursday the 28th. After the Outer Worlds players get locked out of the free Spacer's Choice upgrade, Obsidian says sorry for, quote, the frustration, and promises to make it right. Okay, the Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Edition compiled the base game and both of its expansions a few years ago, alongside a series of technical improvements and so on. Just last month, the studio announced the base game would be delisted, where Spacer's Choice is already available, so basically on most platforms, and outside Nintendo's, the Switch, and promised anyone who had the Outer Worlds in their digital library before May 27th would be entitled to get Spacer's Choice Edition for free. That's right, free, it said at the time, although many players found they were locked out of the game's souped-up version and prompted to buy the game again when the time came. The Spacer's Choice Edition upgrade was intended to say thanks to anyone who purchased the Outer Worlds base game by providing them a free upgrade to the new version, the developer said in an online post. However, due to various entitlement restrictions, and back-end issues, we weren't able to provide this as smoothly as they wish, and players are rightfully upset because they get locked out of their game. So, something relatively simple, and Obsidian boned it, and now they're having to scramble to fix it. I'm not sure what happened to this studio. They are a far cry from the ones who made Fallout New Vegas 16 years ago. I played the first Outer Worlds. I really didn't like it. I thought it was kind of like fast food RPG. There was something there, but it was kind of bland and tasteless, and it just didn't gel together very well. I didn't play the second one. I know it didn't do very well. They released Avowed. I know that didn't do very well. Other than Grounded 2 that they released last year, they've had some problems. And then, this kind of stuff just doesn't help. So, while I don't think that, Xbox is Xbox is already in a bad position relative to the PlayStation. I don't think their recent decisions have been as bad as PlayStation's, but they're already way down the chain as it is. They can't afford to keep doing this, and neither can Obsidian. I did see somewhere that the new Xbox boss, Asher Sharma, has said that we are going to have to make some hard decisions coming up, meaning the Xbox, gaming division of Microsoft. That's a very thinly veiled way of saying a lot of people are getting ready to lose their jobs and we're going to cancel a bunch of shit. And frankly, if I were working at Obsidian, I'd be concerned. Now, this is an interesting little tidbit. This comes from Eurogamer from Tuesday, May 26th. It says a third Kingdom Come RPG may be released sooner than you think. The next game in the Kingdom Come Deliverance role-playing series, as planned stands, is going to be released surprisingly soon. Developer Warhorse Studio says its current target is the next financial year. If everything goes right, it comes the next fiscal year, which means you don't have to wait 7 years for another Kingdom Come. And I had to figure this out too. What does the next fiscal year mean? The company's financial fiscal year align with Embracers, the parent company, which runs like many companies from the 1st of April to 31st of March. So the next financial year is the release window runs from 1st of April 2027 to 31st of March 2028. So that means sometime, probably in the second half of next year, or maybe the first part of 2028. So, in less than 2 years, we could see another Kingdom Come Deliverance game. And people, have said that they don't want to see it rushed. They want to see it done right. But honestly, we have no idea when they started working on this. They could have been working on it before the second one was even released, started assets and pre-production and things like that. So there's no telling. But it does sound like they're optimistic about getting another one out. And as well as this franchise is done, and as much as RPG players have liked it, I think that's pretty cool. Now, bear in mind that Warhorse is also working on some kind of open world Lord of the Rings RPG. Hard to know what is going on there, but right now they put out some good games. I've got to have give them the benefit of the doubt to see what happens. But looking at this, we may not have to wait very long to see. Okay, I'm going to bring up these two articles together because I think this just exemplifies the meme about Gabe Newell over at Steam that says, "Do nothing and win, do something and win." First, I'm going to start with this gamesindustry.biz article, and this was from Thursday the 29th. Valve raises the Steam Deck OLED prices by over 40%. The 1 terabyte model now costs $949 up from $649 due to higher component costs and logistical challenges. And here's basically the upgrades. The 512 gigabyte is now $789 when it was $549, and the 1 terabyte went up $300. And you might think that and think, oh shit, this is going to be a problem for Valve. They're basically their 1 terabyte model is half again as much as it was. I've seen rumors talking about the Steam machine price is going to be between $1,000 and $1,500, and that's going to be the end of it. And nobody's going to pay for it. Blah 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 blah. I go to this IGN article from the same day. The Steam Deck is sold out again, even after the huge price range. Valve recently raised the price of the Steam Deck, making the handheld game $949. While that's a massive $300 increase over its original price, the Steam Deck is once again sold out. Okay, it's not surprising this thing went up in price, but basically every type of hardware is going up in price because of RAM prices and so on. This is nothing new. Okay, even with that $300 price to bump, the Steam Deck sold out in less than 24 hours back in stock. Less than 24 hours. I swear, I think Gabe Newell probably rescued some elder demon of the cosmos from its prison. Again, is keeping this thing in his hip pocket because no matter what happens, they just seem to keep winning. How the hell do you raise your prices by 50% and still sell out in less than a day? I'm going to close with this article just because the mythology around this game and everything that's happened remains, to me, one of the most baffling things that has happened in the video game industry ever. This PC Gamer article from Monday, May 25th. Star Citizen blasts through $1 billion in player funding. That's billion with a B. As its developer lists a new $5,000 spaceship for sale that is not yet ready to play. I'm in the wrong business. Okay, that's enough out of me for the week. As always, I appreciate you tuning in for this news video. If you enjoyed this content, please drop a like on it. If you have comments, if you think I missed a major news story and want to let me know, or if you have anything to say about any of the things I covered this week, if you think Sony is doing fine and everything is fine, let me know that. If you think that the delay of Fable isn't going to be, is because of GTA and I had it wrong, let me know that. That's fine too. I've had some strong comments in the past. It doesn't bother me. I just enjoy talking about these things. Like I said, I love the discourse around games and around gaming. And more than anything, I just want gamers to have good games that they can enjoy. And that's really, even though I get wound up by some of these topics, that's really what I want to have happen. So, and if you have enjoyed this content and would like to subscribe to the channel, it only takes one click. I appreciate it. It helps me out a whole lot. Helps boost my visibility a little bit, which is what I'm trying to do. So I will be back next week with more Quick Bird news. I'm not going to swear not to talk about Sony, because I swear every time I do that, they do something that I got to talk about. But I'm sure we'll have more gaming stuff to talk about next week. That's what I wanted to say. The Summer Games Showcase is going to be on Friday. I'm going to try and live stream it. I'm not going to be able to live stream the State of Play on Tuesday. I'm going to be traveling that day. Unfortunately, I may record it and watch it afterwards and give some commentary. So look for that on the channel. Summer Games Fest Showcase is Friday, and I'm hoping we're going to get some intel on the games we're looking for that are coming out. So like I said, if you want to tune in, I'll be live streaming that. Okay, I'm going to call this quits. And hopefully I will see you next week. Thank you again for tuning in. I appreciate it. You all go out there, live your best lives, and y'all stay gaming.